If you haven't already, please go ahead and click on the subscribe button, and while you're at it, click on that little bell too. What's up everybody, it's me E-Man from E-Man's Movie Reviews. From early on into the MCU, Loki has been a rather popular character. So when he met his third untimely demise in Avengers Infinity War, many people, including myself, found it very hard to believe. However, after some recent news from Marvel and the Russo brothers, everything we thought we knew about Loki has dramatically changed. So today I want to give you guys the real reason why Loki had to die in Avengers Infinity War and why everything we thought we knew about him has to change. Coming up next. I think that in order to get a true understanding as to why Loki had to die, it would be best for us to take a quick look back at his life. So let's go back and take a look at Loki, and by the end of it all, we'll hopefully get a clear picture of why Marvel decided to take him out in Infinity War. In Thor 1, we learn that Loki is the son of the ruler of Asgard, Odin. Loki is also the brother of Thor, the thunder god. Loki is considered to be the god of mischief, as he's always pulling tricks on people and he's very good with magic. In Thor 1, Loki makes the startling discovery that he's actually adopted, was left to die by his real parents who were frost giants, and that he's basically been lied to for most of his life. This naturally angered Loki deeply, and his anger and jealousy grew for both Thor and Odin. After some confrontations with Thor, Loki allowed himself to fall into a wormhole in space. Fast forward to Avengers 1, we learn that Loki made contact with the Mad Titan Thanos, who gave Loki a very powerful scepter to command his alien army with the goal of conquering Earth. In return, Thanos wanted Loki to bring him back the Tesseract, or as we know now it to be, the Space Stone. Loki was not only defeated by the Avengers, but he was arrested and brought back to Asgard to be locked up. As we jump into Thor 2, some dark elves began to threaten the universe in their search for the Ether, aka the Reality Stone. Thor is left with no choice but to free Loki and team up with him to defeat the threat. It was during this encounter that Loki faked his death in order to go back to Asgard and pretend to be the King Odin while Odin was away. In Thor Ragnarok, Loki's ruse was foiled by Thor, and he accompanied Thor to find the missing Odin. Once they found their father, Odin acknowledged Loki as his son, and it was at that moment that Loki began to reconcile the anger within him after all this time. After Odin's passing, Loki again teamed up with Thor in order to defeat their sister Hela, and by the film's end, Loki is now face to face with Thanos once again. And that brings us back to Avengers Infinity War, where we learn that Loki has double-crossed Thor again by stealing the Tesseract in order to give it to Thanos. However, this is also the point where Loki makes yet another turning point in his character. Despite being the god of mischief, Loki makes a very heartfelt speech that connects with his brother Thor, and then he does something a bit more out of character and attempts to double-cross Thanos. And this is the point where he meets his apparent demise. So that's the rundown on Loki's character, covering most of the important parts. He's certainly come a very long way, and with the twists and turns of his character, it's not hard to see why he's become a fan favorite. Now that we're all on the same page, we can talk about his death a little bit more. As I mentioned earlier, I wasn't buying any of it. We've seen Loki fake his death multiple times, so naturally it wouldn't surprise any of us that he wasn't actually dead in Avengers Infinity War either. Some people were even theorizing that Loki was impersonating the Hulk the whole time or whatever. While I can't say that the Loki Hulk theory is 100% untrue, I can say that it's 99.999% not likely. You can check out my other videos where I debunk the Loki Hulk theory and show you that Marvel has other plans for the Hulk, which is why he never showed up. I'll leave those links in the description, or you can click on the little eye at the end of this video to see them. Anyway, at a recent Q&A, it turned out that the Russo brothers have addressed the Loki theory for what it would appear to be the very first time. Here's what they had to say.
There's like this fan theory that Bruce is really Loki in disguise. Have you heard this? Loki is dead.
So, according to the Russos, that's it for Loki. He's not just dead, he's like dead. So I guess I was wrong in my own theory thinking that Loki was still alive, and that Loki Hulk theory is also just untrue. Now if it does pan out to be the case that Avengers Endgame will deal with time travel, then there's some hope for Loki. Some leaked set images are giving people hope that the Loki from the past may just make a comeback. Anyway, now that it's more than likely that Loki is truly dead, the question now becomes,
Why? 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 Why?
Why did Loki have to die, especially the way that he did? Well, I think we can get some insight on that from Tom Hiddleston.
The thing is that he is redeemed, and I found it very touching because Loki as a character has been so broken for so long, and I think the center of him has been very fragile and very isolated after those traumatic events in the first film when he finds out he was adopted. But not only he was adopted, that his parents or his father had left him to die. So he has internalized that shame of being abandoned and being alone. And in all of that shame is turned into something harder and angrier, which is why he becomes the villain he becomes. He comes down to earth, he tries to subjugate it. He becomes a villain in every sense of the word. He's motivated by hatred and anger. And then he loses his mother, and he's still kind of unself-aware in that way. And it's only losing his father who calls him one of his sons. Odin includes him, says, "Are my sons," at the beginning of Ragnarok. And the chaos of another sibling, Hela turning up, and Thor and Loki have to join forces, and Thor really gets through to Loki in that way. And so to have it all come full circle, and for Loki to call himself an Odin son, to really identify with that, to identify with the strength of his father's love before saving his brother, I found really touching.
So it would appear that Loki's death was meant to be an intentional way to bring a level of redemption back to the character. We're supposed to take away from Loki's final moments a sense that he succumbed to having a change of heart. He let go of all that hatred and bitterness against Thor. He also, in a sense, let go of the hatred for Odin when he stated in his final speech to Thanos that Loki was an Odin son. So Loki's final moments were a way to have his character come to terms with his own hatred and anger, forgive those he blamed in the past, and to try to have at least one heroic moment in order to redeem himself. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him in the long run, but in terms of the character, it was self-fulfilling. Now this brings us back to another issue, which is Marvel has retconned Loki's character. It turns out that a Reddit user made an observation that pointed out an update on Marvel's website about Loki's character. This new bit of information adds a bit more to what happened to Loki in between the events of Thor 1 and Avengers 1. It said, offering the god of mischief dominion over his brother's favorite realm, Thanos requested the Tesseract in return. Gifted with a scepter that acted as a mind control device, Loki would be able to influence others. Unbeknownst to him, the scepter was also influencing him, fueling his hatred over his brother Thor and the inhabitants of Earth. So in other words, the Mind Stone that Thanos gave Loki was actually feeding into Loki's hatred for his brother and father Odin. I've noticed other YouTubers have said things like Thanos was manipulating and controlling Loki, but I don't believe that that's actually the case. The Marvel bio for Loki doesn't say anything about Thanos controlling or influencing Loki. Rather, it simply said that the Mind Stone itself was doing that to Loki. Now, we've seen this side effect happen to other people like Banner or even the rest of the Avengers when they too were around the Mind Stone and it began to feed into their anger issues. With Loki being a god, it does make sense that as a more powerful being, he would essentially be more resistant to the effects of the Mind Stone compared to the Avengers. So what does this new information all mean? Well, for one, this new retcon information lets us know that Loki was under the influence of the Mind Stone. It means that while his anger may have been valid, without the Mind Stone's presence, he may not have gone as far to try and conquer Earth and do all that other villainous stuff. Plus, just in case anyone needs any more evidence of the effects of the Mind Stone, let's consider this. Ever since the first Avengers movie, Loki has been separated further away from the Mind Stone. Notice that the longer Loki's been away from the Mind Stone and the further away he's been from it, the more he's been able to come to his senses and actually have the emotional capacity to get over his resentment. Personally, as a comic book fan, I don't like it. I think it's a cheap way to remove a level of accountability on Loki's character just because he's a fan favorite, but then again, maybe it's a way to soften audiences' view of him since Loki just so happens to have his own TV show about to premiere on the Disney Plus streaming channel. I don't know, maybe. Either way, Loki goes from villain to anti-villain to now just a sympathetic character who may end up becoming a bit of an anti-hero. I'm also not a fan of his character turn because it diminishes the amount of work he did to try and redeem himself right before his death. But those are just my thoughts on the matter. What do you all think about Marvel's change up for Loki's character? Do you like the direction they're taking him? How do you feel to know that this version of Loki that we've known is actually dead and not posing as Bruce Banner or the Hulk? Let me know what you all think about this in the comments down below so we can talk about it. By the way, be on the lookout for my very next video. Thanks to this information about Loki, it opens up a huge issue that I don't think many people have realized yet. Just to give you a hint, I'm going to talk to you all about who the true villain will be in Avengers Endgame. I cannot wait until you all hear my next upcoming theory, so be sure to be a subscriber and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out. Some people have told me that their notifications haven't been working for some reason, so just to be safe, try turning them off and then back on to see if it makes a difference. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my videos. I always appreciate it. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. If you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it.